What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking the latest edition of WWE Photo Shoot as seen after the Raw Reunion show on Monday night, this time featuring Shane McMahon. I think this was the first episode of Photo Shoot since about March, I think, right before WrestleMania. That one had Rusev on it, and the show's pretty good. If you're not familiar with the concept, the format of the show, they sit down superstars and show them photos of their respective careers, lives, and WWE and beyond. So this episode obviously featuring Shane McMahon. Now, if you're a person such as myself who's seen way too much of Shane on WWE TV over the last 6 months or so, you're may not going to want to sit down to watch this episode, but it's quality content. The photo shoot episodes never disappoint. The network content typically never disappoints, despite the absurd amount of Shane McMahon we've gotten on WWE TV, on Raw, on SmackDown since November's Crown Jewel pay-per-view. At least with the network stuff, he's very much bearable. So I thought this was a good show. So the first photo we're shown is of Shane doing a Tuesday Night Titans taping as an announcer. Now, I don't know if it was as a commentator or something along those lines, but he was doing it when he was 12 years old, which is amazing. So when he says that he's been part of the business since day one, that is very much accurate, and that shows here. He's always been involved in some form or fashion, and I have yet to see a single episode of the Tuesday Night Titans show. And I don't think he was doing announcing, but he must have been helping out with announcing or trying out ring announcing, stuff like that. But he did all the jobs. So the next picture we see is of him with Tony Chimmel, and he talks about, taking ring jackets from people, doing the audio cues, all the behind the camera work, and calls it an amazing journey, starting, kind of remembering where he started from to where he is today. And he talked about how he did whatever it took to kind of, get himself further in the business and learn whatever he needed to learn to become a more well-rounded performer in professional wrestling. We also see a picture of him with Vince, his dad, Vince McMahon, on an early episode of Raw in the early 1990s. And Vince, I guess, was getting annoyed at this point with Shane because, Vince was an on-air personality at that point. In addition to being the owner of the company, he was a commentator for Raw. So in addition to doing his own job, he wore a lot of different hats. He was given all the audio cues, pretty much what he does now, but times 10, because he wasn't on camera. He's not on camera now, but he is, at this point, 20, 30 years ago. And Shane, just trying to do the best that he could, was probably getting frustrated with his dad's direction, but there really wasn't much more he could do. But it was kind of cool to see that back and forth between Shane and Vince 25 years ago, with Shane as a young, on-stage hand doing all the camera work, stuff like that, and now he's like the person being filmed in the ring as an on-air personality. But it was kind of cool to see that back and forth between Shane and his dad when Shane was first starting to kind of break into the business. We see a picture of Shane with Mike Tyson, his dad Vince, and Stone Cold, obviously as part of the angle when Mike Tyson was brought into WWE going into WrestleMania. What was it, 14, 15? I think it was WrestleMania 14, wasn't it? I think it was WrestleMania 14. But he said that it was awesome to be a part of. Obviously, we're talking about the big brawl between Mike Tyson and Stone Cold on that episode of Raw before WrestleMania that set forth the build for Stone Cold and Shane McMahon, or rather, not Shane McMahon, Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania that year for the WWE Championship. He said it was fun. He said that he and Mike Tyson got along very well. They just gelled perfectly together. And he said that the big goal of that segment was to get a lot of media of Stone Cold Mike Tyson being confronted by Stone Cold Steve Austin. And they did. They got a lot of media out of that moment, and it's been, 20 years, and people are still talking about that moment to this day. It's regarded as one of the all-time great Raw moments, and rightfully so. It was amazing. And Shane did play a part in that. Some people may not remember that because obviously the focus was on Shane, and it was not Shane. It was on, Mike Tyson. It was on Stone Cold. It was on Vince. Not so much Shane, but Shane was there. He was also at the Montreal Screwjob. Now we see a picture of Shane here with his dad at the Montreal Screw. I don't know if he's actually in the picture. We see a picture of Brett leaving the ring with Vince at ringside, and that was when Brett spit in his face. But he said he remembers being there, calls it a very difficult day in the business. Now, he actually goes off on Brett here, which I thought was really interesting. Now, I have yet to see, I'm filming this the day after I watched, or the day that I watched it, but the day after it aired on Tuesday. This is probably going up on Friday. But as of this recording, I have not seen any talk of this episode on Twitter, social media, whatever. And again, it's only been a day and people have yet to watch it probably, and it aired so late on the network. And not only that, but like people have already gotten sick of seeing Shane. So I'm sure people have yet to watch it or don't want to watch it because it involves Shane. But anyway, I thought it was really interesting what he had to say about Bret Hart here. He said that it was extremely selfish of him in not giving back to the company. That's the word that he used, selfish. That was the exact phrase that he used here to describe Bret Hart, that he was not giving back to the business when Vince asked him to drop the WWE Championship in Toronto, and Bret said no. And it goes both ways. Bret was not 100% in the right at that point, but neither was Vince in doing what he did. I don't think Shane really sees it that way. He didn't make it sound that way. It wasn't like, Bret was being selfish, but my dad shouldn't have done what he did. No, he defended his dad through and through here. And again, it's his son. Shane is Vince's son, so I can't say I'm incredibly surprised. But I thought what he had to say about Bret here, not burying the guy, but coming close to it, I thought was very interesting. He said that he thought that Vince was just protecting the brand, and he was protecting the title. So he was exactly and very much justified in doing what he did via the Montreal Screwjob. He said that Vince actually talked to Shane after the event to give his side of the story and said, listen, I did it for the business, and I just want you to learn from that. Just, follow in my footsteps. And it was just weird because Shane never once said, like, he probably shouldn't have screwed him or they could have done business a different way. No, he defended his dad through and through. He thought his dad was completely in the right. So I thought that was, again, maybe not entirely surprising just because he is his son, but I thought it was a little, I don't really agree with him, but I thought it was interesting. He also said that he witnessed Bret punching Vince afterward, which we've all heard the story about a million times. But yeah, Bret Hart, in leaving the arena that night, punched Bret Hart, or rather Vince McMahon, in the face after what happened earlier on in the evening with the screw job. And Shane, I guess, was right there when it happened, and he said it was a disgusting act in so many words. Maybe not those exact words, but he kind of seemed, repulsed by what Bret Hart did to his own dad. And again, it's his dad, so no one wants to see that happen, but given what Vince did, I can't say I blame Bret, but whatever. But he called Vince a hero. He said his dad is a hero and that he did, that just kind of goes to show what type of man he is. And I was like, oh, okay. Again, very interesting comments from Shane there. We also see a shot of Shane training his dad for the Royal Rumble match, the 1999 Royal Rumble match that he ended up winning, actually. Where they filmed those vignettes going up, leading up to the Rumble. He said that he had great chemistry with his dad, and that a lot of that stuff that they filmed for those vignettes that aired on Raw leading up to the pay-per-view, a lot of it was off the cuff, and that usually ends up being the best stuff. And I just wish they could learn that from that today and do more of that on WWE TV without everything being so fucking scripted. We see a picture of Shane partaking in the beer truck segment where Stone Cold brought out the beer truck and sprayed Vince and Shane in the ring. He said it was just classic stuff. We see a picture of Shane as a kid with Andre the Giant, and he said that his parents told him growing up that if he ate all of his vegetables, he would grow up to be as big as Andre, which was funny. We see a picture of him having his first match with Mick Foley, and it came about when Shane ran Raw for the night after Vince was gone. He kind of worked the Stooges a bit. He said it was so exciting to be in the ring, and he thought it was awesome. But he said the worst part about that thing was taking Mr. Sacco, because he thought that was the most disgusting thing, because he doesn't know where that thing has been. I don't think anyone does, except for Mick, maybe himself, but he thought that was gross. Otherwise, it was awesome for him, and he thought that he had didn't really earn his stripes by that point, and that you have to pay your dues in the business, and wrestling one match was not going to get you there. So he had his second match not long after that with the Stooges, who were dressed up as the not the Ultimate Warrior, the fucking Road Warriors. I don't know why I said the Ultimate Warrior. I saw Warriors here, that's why I said that. So they were dressed up as the Road Warriors. And again, it was something that he was very much honored by, because the Stooges being Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, legends in the business. We just saw them at Raw Reunion this past week. But he said being in the ring with them was something that he would never forget. We see a shot and a few clips from Shane partaking in the Royal Rumble 2006 poster, if I'm not mistaken. The poster for that show in just I don't know if it was the intro to that pay-per-view, but they definitely used it in the marketing for the show, where they were all dressed up as like Roman figures and like they were right out of the fucking like ancient Greek era, ancient Roman era. And he said that a lot of that was spontaneous ad-libs, and that was what made that really entertaining. And again, he said it was a lot of fun. We see clips of him facing The Big Show. I think it was at Backlash 2000, the Last Man Standing match. And the whole impetus behind the feud was Jack and the Beanstalk, which I don't really remember. I think I remember watching the video package, but I wasn't watching Raw back then, so I have no idea. But it ended up making sense because Shane, and that was the match where Shane, that was what we see a picture of here, was Shane climbing the structure on the side of the stage and ended up falling right off of it on top of the Big Show. So I guess it made sense with the story they were telling at that point. But he remembers getting knocked out by Big Show halfway during the match, and he couldn't see anything. He could barely even hear anything. And then Big Show picked him up at the last second, being the consummate professional that he is, and he was all right by that point. But that was a pretty scary moment for him. And he said that he always wanted to be different than everyone else. So in doing so, he wanted to do things that no one else would, and that was what led to him doing all this crazy shit, including that stunt. So we see a shot of him facing Vince. His dad at WrestleMania 17 said that it was the hardest thing that he's ever been a part of in front of these tens of thousands of fans at WrestleMania, his dad's own creation, facing his own fucking father. And he said that his dad was a lot tougher than he thought. He got smacked right in the mouth right off the bat. So I thought it was a great match. He didn't really talk too much about the match itself. You see some clips of it, but I liked that match, watching it back a lot more than I thought it would. I'll just put it that way. We see a shot of him with Vince facing Shawn Michaels and God at Backlash 2006. Yes, that was a thing. He said that it was a very interesting match and more so for the lead-up. And he talks about the vignettes with him and his dad at the church where Vince drank the holy water and mocked Triple H by spitting it out, doing that whole thing. And he said it was really priceless stuff. And he thought people were like, oh, I can't believe they went there. And oh, I can't believe they said this and that, blah, blah, blah. We see a shot of him getting electrocuted in the testicles by Kane. Yes, that also did happen many, many years ago, I think in 2003. He said it was painful, obviously, and that Kane fucking jammed the cables, I guess, right into his nether region. So that was not a fun moment for Shane. This is really what I wanted to see this episode for, the shot of him returning to WWE in 2016. He said one of his biggest motivations behind his return to WWE after 7 years away was allowing his sons to see him wrestle. A lot like Goldberg, who also ended up returning to WWE that year. His sons had never seen him compete live before, and that was one of the reasons why he ended up coming back in 2016. And it also kind of had to align just right. It had to make sense. It had to be the perfect storm, and it was. He said it was the loudest ovation he's ever heard in his entire life. He still gets choked up about it to this day. And it was a great reaction. I remember marking the fuck out of it, just marking the hell out for it. Seeing Shane back on Raw, and it obviously meant a lot to him. He teared up in the ring. His dad teared up. It was a really cool moment to see Shane back on WWE TV for the first time in over 7 years, just about. But he said it was very special. And then they were off to the races. And that was what led into his match with The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 32. That was the next picture that we see here. He asked his wife before the match, minutes beforehand, if he could bring the boys, his 3 sons, out to the ring with him. And they agreed. It's a bit scary being out there in front of a fucking 100,000 people. It was the largest WrestleMania crowd in history. But they did it, and they did great. No rehearsal. They just went out there and winged it, and they did awesome. Then he had to put his game face on, face The Undertaker inside the cell seconds later. It was an instant change like that. He remembers going up to the top of the cell to do the spot, the diving elbow two-taker off the cell, which he missed, obviously. He said it was super loud there for a moment, and then nothing. As soon as he hit the mat, or the table, whatever, nothing. He knew that it was just the perfect storm to be back when he did, come back when he did. He said that Vince was tearing up, Stephanie was emotional, and it was just overwhelming in the best way possible. We see a picture of him facing AJ Styles at WrestleMania 33. He doesn't really talk about the match itself, more so about the coast-to-coast move that he does. How he obviously, adopted it from Rob Van Dam, and it started out as a bet from, I think, Paul Heyman, he said, who challenged him to come up with something similar or to do the move, whatever. So he put his own twist on it by, instead of doing the springboard into the Van Daminator, I think is what he calls it, or the Van Terminator, I think it's the Van Daminator. So instead of doing that, he just jumped straight up from the top rope through his, right to his opponent, drop kicking them in the corner of the ring. And it took a while for him to perfect, but he ended up hitting it, and now it's just ingrained in his brain to do the move whenever it's called upon. But he said he practiced it all night. He practiced it all night until he got it right, and he obviously did. And now he does it all the time in his matches. Just amazing to think that it started out as a bet. We You see a picture of him getting stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin himself at Raw 25. I was there for that show. Amazing moment. Said that it was a lot of fun. He thinks that he's actually set a record in the amount of stunners he's taken by Stone Cold over the years, over the course of his career. I think he said that he's taken more stunners from Stone Cold than anyone else in WWE, and that probably includes The Rock. He said that he and Stone Cold have always gelled really, really well. They've always had great chemistry, and said that it was kind of like magic to be back in the ring with Stone Cold on that night. And then the last shot that we see here is of Shane with his family. I think right before or right after the WrestleMania match, they're all wearing their Shane McMahon jerseys. He said that his kids, now that they're older, they all critique his matches, which is kind of funny. And that they're also his training partners before every match that he has, which unfortunately is like once a month now, not like once or twice a year, but whatever. Working out with his kids, getting ready for the matches, all that other stuff. And he said they were a very special crew to have in his corner as support for all of his matches. And that was it. That was it for this episode of Photo Shoot with Shane McMahon. Again, if you're not the biggest Shane fan right now, as many people are not, myself included, I still thought this was a very good show. It's about 27 minutes in length, so it's a bit on the longer side, but well worth the time. I wish we would have gotten more shots of Shane in recent years doing more stuff. The only recent stuff was the return talk and facing AJ at WrestleMania 33 and Raw 25. Then again, I'm not really sure what else they would include, but he did have that long feud with Kevin Owens a few years ago and even recently. I don't know when this was filmed or recorded or whatever. But still, I thought it was a good show. Be sure to check it out on the WWE Network at your leisure. And thank you guys for checking out the video. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, and share this video as well. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. We will be back soon with more content, so like I said, be sure to hit that subscribe button for all the content that goes up. Until next time, guys, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Have an awesome one, and I'll catch your ass down the road.